Hey everybody, it's Reed Comics 81. Hope everybody's doing well out there in the community today. So this video is going to be interesting. Sometimes when I'm bored, I'll go through people's channels on YouTube and I'll look through their old videos, I don't know, just to see what's on there. And I was doing that a couple days ago, and I was looking through my buddy Brian, Scoons Comics. I was looking through his channel at his older videos, and I came across one. It's a tag video, and at the end of this video, he actually tagged me in it. And it was a video that I'd never seen before. I'm not sure how this video snuck past me, but this was like 4 years ago. And it was a tag video for 5 comic books that will never leave my collection. So I thought, what a cool idea for a video. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm making this tag video 4 years later, but better late than never, right? So I've got 5 comic books from my collection that I'm going to show, and none of them are really keys or anything. They're all from my childhood, and each one has a story behind it. So I'm going to get started with Amazing Spider-Man number 220. And this is a CGC 9.4 with white pages. And the reason this is significant is because this is the very first Amazing Spider-Man book that I bought with my own money. And back in 1981, I grew up in Flint, Michigan on the west side, about 1.5 miles away from this massive Chevrolet plant, this huge complex of factories. And there were many, many large parking lots and overflow parking lots where the shop employees parked their cars. And a lot of times they would go out to their vehicles and they would take their lunch break out of their cars. And there were all of these metal garbage barrels for them to put their garbage in. And a lot of them would partake of drinks on their lunch break. And they would put their empty beer bottles and beer cans and pop cans and bottles in these garbage barrels. And in Michigan, we have a 10-cent bottle deposit. So for every 10 bottles you take back to the store, you get $1. So what I would do is every Saturday morning, I would get on my bike and I'd have a couple of empty grocery bags, and I would ride down the street and I would dig through all of these garbage cans, and I would make money, and I would take the money, or I would take the bottles to the store and return them and get the money, and go across the street to the drugstore and buy comic books with that money. And this is one of those books that I bought with that money. And funny story about this book too is that I had a friend who also liked comic books, and one day he was visiting me, and he was wearing this shirt, button-up shirt that had 2 breast pockets on it. And he was in my bedroom, and I had to go to the bathroom or something. I left the bedroom for a minute, and when I came back, he was in a big hurry to go. He said, I got to go home. I got homework to do, or whatever. I don't know. He was just really, really in a hurry to get out of there. And I noticed that one of his shirt pockets was kind of shaped like a square, and it was bulging. And my comic book was nowhere to be seen. So I reached over and I opened up his shirt pocket, and I pulled it out, and it was my ASM 220 folded into 4s and shoved down into his pocket. So I beat him up and made him give me 50 cents to buy a new copy. So not too long ago, I ran into Bob Layton at a convention, and I had him sign a copy of that book for me. I tried to find it for this video, but I couldn't find it. And I told him the story, and there he is making a fist when I told him the story of how I beat up my friend because he damaged my comic. So anyway, Amazing Spider-Man 220 is the first book in my collection that will never leave. And let's move on to the second book. Oh man, every time I look at the cover of this book, it takes me back to 1981, and I feel like a 10-year-old all over again. This is James Bond for Your Eyes Only, number 1, newsstand edition, CGC 9.8, white pages. Not only did I love this movie, but this was the first #1 comic book that I bought off the spinner rack. When I saw this and saw that it was a #1, just seeing that #1 on there, oh, it was so exciting. And like I said, I loved this movie, and I had a huge crush on BB right here. So yeah, I just love this book. This is a 2-issue limited series based on the movie. And I have multiple copies of this in the newsstand, multiple direct copies. I even have, this is kind of embarrassing, but I even have a CBCS 9.8, which I got this first and then realized that I wanted the CGC, so I got this one second. But yeah, 2 9.8 copies. I actually do have a signed copy of this that I also couldn't find for the video, but I've got this photograph of me and the artist Howard Chaykin when he signed my copy of this book. And I also have, let's see, where is it? Oh, right here. I have the magazine, and the only thing I'm missing is the paperback adaptation, which is kind of hard to find in high grade, so I'm still holding out for a high grade copy of that. But yeah, love this book. And that's #2. Let's move on to #3. Let's talk about Daredevil, #181, The Death of Elektra. Oh my gosh. When this book came out, this made shockwaves at my school. I mean, everybody was just blown away that Elektra had been killed by Bullseye, and just in the graphic way that he did it. And to me, this story still holds up as one of the best comic book stories ever made in the history of comics. I mean, obviously I haven't read every comic book in the history of comics, but of those that I've read, this one right here is just a masterpiece of storytelling and art. So yeah, love this book. I'll always have a form of this book in my collection, be it this raw copy, or someday hopefully I'll get a CGC 9.8 of this book. But yeah, I remember playing superheroes on the playground at Eisenhower Elementary School, and I was always Bullseye. My friend Robert was always Daredevil. My friend Jason was always SpiderMan. And one day I went to my mom's deck of playing cards, and I took out the Ace of Spades, and I took it to school, and I was like acting like I was throwing it at people, and I thought I was so cool because I was the only one of my friends that actually had like part of a costume, part of one of the characters' costumes with this Ace of Spade card. So yeah, I love this book. Will always keep it in my collection. Book 4 is Savage Sword of Conan #102. I bought this around towards the end of my collecting days when I first started collecting comics. So I think this came out in 1983 maybe, and I was starting to get out of comics a little bit and getting more into like music and weightlifting and things like that, things that a 12, 13-year-old boy typically starts getting interested in. But one day I saw this. Let me see how much time I've got left. Oh, plenty of time. One day I saw this on the magazine rack, kind of near the spinner rack, and I had never seen this before. I had no reason to look at the magazine rack because everything I cared about was on the spinner rack. But I saw this, and I went through it, thumbed through it, and this book just blew me away. I had no idea that Marvel made magazine-sized comics like for mature readers. And just the Ernie Chan art and just some of the drawings, like there are like half-naked women like all through this book. And, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they make this stuff. And I remember being really nervous when I took this up to the counter to pay for it because I didn't know if they were actually going to sell it to me or not. I was afraid they were going to look at me and, scold me and demand that I return this to the counter and never come back to the store. But yeah, I got it through the checkout and got it home and read every page of it and loved it. So yeah, this is a book that will never leave my collection, and wonderful Bill Sienkiewicz art or cover as well. So yeah, great book. And the final book I'm going to show of the books that will never leave my collection is Spidey Super Stories #49. Pretty sure I've told the story of this book. My mom bought me this book It's the first comic book that I ever owned. I made a video recently called Am I a Hoarder or a Collector? And I talk a little bit about my background of collecting. If you haven't seen that, go check that video out. And I used to collect all kinds of weird stuff, bottle caps, cigarette butts, things like that. So one day my mom bought me this comic book because she probably thought that this was one of the best things for me to collect. Outside of all the other gross things I was collecting, she was okay with comics. So she bought me this book. And yeah, this is where my love of Spider-Man began, and my love of comic books in general. And I will always have this book in my collection. This is a CBCS 9.8 with white pages. So there you go, guys. Before I sign off, I'm going to tag 3 more people. I'm going to tag KMN 1971, Kevin, Rob at Batcave Comics, and I'm going to tag Mike at Night Tiger Comics. Optional, you don't have to make a video, but if you do, try not to wait 4 years like I did. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Brian at Scoons Comics, thanks for tagging me 4 years ago, and I hope everybody enjoyed this video. This is Read Comics 81, signing out. Happy hunting, everybody.